The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Indeed, the gang is all here. We appreciate you joining us on this beautiful Saturday as we're going to look back on the week that was. We're going to talk about a first win. We're going to talk about plowing through the rain down under in Formula One. John Force Racing has been in the news a lot here the last couple of weeks, and yeah, they are again this week. So we'll get to that in the NHRA news. We do have an IndyCar NASCAR crossover coming soon. Maybe not in the way that you might have expected, though. Got new names coming to both the Xfinity and the Craftsman Truck Series. We'll detail those and who they're going to be driving for. Some quick thinking on the part of a Cup Series team might have saved a top 20 finish. What's the fallout from NASCAR? We'll detail that. So we got all of that. And unfortunately, we got a couple of notable passings to talk about as well. We're going to get to it all here as we get ready to get this edition of CRN rolling, which we're going to do right after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, I say we get this thing underway. What about you, Matt?
Well, let's go.
Yeah. Allergies messing with you as much as they're messing with me?
Can confirm.
So, yeah, from time to time, we'll clear our throat or, have to turn our heads and cough and do all that kind of wonderful stuff. So bear with us as we go throughout the morning here, as we appreciate you checking us out, whether it's on the flagship station, 95.1 The Mountain, or via YouTube, CRN Live. Been noticing our subscribers uptick, and we thank you very much for that. Keep telling your friends and all those people that you know. Heck, tell people you don't know. We appreciate that, too. All right, so let's do with the recap here in the schedule for the week, and let's start off with the fact that, we did talk about the Craftsman Truck Series race at Las Vegas on last week's show, so we'll jump straight to the Xfinity Series race out in Sin City. Race settled by a long green flag run, 102-lap green flag run to end the race. Wow. Man on top, defending champion Justin Allgaier. So Allgaier finally able to grab his first win of this year in defense of his first ever Xfinity Series title. Held off Eric Almirola to get that win. Allgaier over Almirola, third Jesse Love, fourth Austin Hill, then Sam Mayer making up the top 5. Brandon Jones, Ryan Sieg, Harrison Burton, Connor Zilich, and Sheldon Creed fill out the top 10. Allgaier jumps up to become the number 1 seed amongst the 4 drivers who have wins so far this year and are in the playoffs. He's up over Jesse Love, Austin Hill, and Connor Zilich. In on points, Sam Mayer leads the way, trailed by Sammy Smith, Sheldon Creed, Taylor Gray, Ryan Sieg, Christian Eckes, Jeb, and then Harrison Burton. Harrison has slipped back into the playoffs after 1 week out, 5-point lead over Carson Quapple, and a 9-point lead over Brandon Jones. So it's not like it's the most comfortable lead on the planet, but again, it's really early in the year. Whole lot of movement going on. So strap in. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Saturday night, supposed to be the season opening race for Formula One in Australia, but Mother Nature came into play, kind of messed with things a little bit. When the race finally got rolling, it was pole sitter Lando Norris who turned it all into a win, not without a little bit of drama. Norris spun during a heavy downpour as he was preparing to come in for proper tires, but he was able to gather the ride back up. His teammate Oscar Piastri, not so lucky, dropped many spots, getting stuck in the grass, but he was able to get himself out. We'll detail that during Formula One news. It's interesting who he credits for being able to do that. Norris wins, Max Verstappen second, George Russell third, Kimi Antonelli, the rookie, fourth. Good start in his rookie season. Then Alex Albon in the top 5. Lance Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg debuting for Kick Sauber there with the top 10. Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri finishes 9th. Lewis Hamilton rounds out the top 10. Only the top 14 finished. Big names like Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz suffering DNFs. Good night. It was a race of attrition last week. This week looks to be a little different. Starts off with the fact that it'll be dry, so that's a nice start. Nice change. Driver standards married the top 10, so I'm not going to worry about that. Constructors' Cup is different because it takes both drivers from the team into account, so here's your deal. After race number 1, McLaren and Mercedes are tied at 27 points on top, 18 for Red Bull, Williams 10, 8 for Aston Martin. Sauber off the mat quickly with 6, Ferrari 5. Ouch. Goose eggs for Alpine, Haas F1, Racing Bulls, who are each hoping for a better weekend this weekend. A couple of them looking like they might actually have some signs of life. I'll let you figure out which two.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where else are we going? How about Sunday? Cup Series. Las Vegas race got rolling. Christopher Bell came into the weekend for his 4th win in a row. A lot of things conspired against that. First, he had to move to the back of the field for start because of changes between qualifying and the race. Then he incurred a pit road penalty, and that opened up the door for the rest of the field. And the driver who stepped through, a little bit of a surprise to a whole lot of people, maybe not necessarily to you and me, Matt. I mean, this is one of those guys that we're kind of sitting here thinking to ourselves, it's more a matter of when, not if he's going to claim that first win. It's Josh Berry.
Yeah.
Josh Berry's he's an amazingly talented guy. For a guy who actually got noted by Dale Earnhardt Jr. for playing video games and doing very well in iRacing against him, and to give him a shot in a late model and work his way up to the Cup Series and then take Wood Brothers to victory lane, all of that's just a great story.
Right.
You know, and it goes again to something that we were talking about during the Cross Flags podcast. Is it the driver or is it the car? And now that we've switched from Harrison Burton to in this case, Josh Berry, I think we've got the answer.
We have an update. It wasn't the car.
Yeah, the car's actually quite good. We were wondering for so long, how in the world can we see so much good out of Team Penske? Austin Cindric winning a Daytona 500, Joey Logano with 2 Cup titles, Ryan Blaney with 1 Cup title, and fighting last year with Joey Logano for a second. We were wondering what was going on with the Wood brothers. Turns out they needed the right driver. It had nothing to do with the car.
Yeah, it definitely was nothing to do with the car at all.
So here we go. Restart with 19 laps left. It was Daniel Suarez and Barry battling side by side for a few laps, but Barry was able to get out front and held Suarez off. Claims his first career Cup Series win and the 101st in the history of the Wood brothers. Great story there. Also becomes the 4th consecutive driver who's claimed his first career win with the historic team. Harrison Burton did do it last year. Granted, it was at Daytona. He does cement a playoff spot early, and that means for the 2nd year in a row, after seeing Harrison Burton's win at Daytona qualifying for them for the playoffs, they're going to be in the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row, the way that it looks. Because I wouldn't be terrifically surprised if he claims another win. But here's the thing.
I won't either.
If he or Christopher Bell claims any more wins, my bold prediction from the early part of the year is going to be out the window when I said we would probably get more than 16 winners by the end of the regular season. It's already kind of on the rocks. Barry best Suarez by more than 1.3 seconds. Ryan Preece claiming a career best 3rd. Look at that. Then you got William Byron in 4th, Ross Chastain in 5th. Rest of your top 10, Austin Cindric, Alex Bowman, AJ Allmendinger, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. 3 drivers now in the playoffs with wins. Christopher Bell, aforementioned, has 3 in a row. 1 each for William Byron and Josh Berry. 3 locked in at this time. We'll see whether that changes. In on points, Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, Michael McDowell, John Hunter Nemechek, and rounding out the 16 is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Kyle Busch is on the outside looking in, 2 points out. Ryan Preece is 14 outside of the playoffs. And again, real early, big changes could happen, and I would expect them to. That brings us to this, busy weekend. Started last night at Homestead Miami Speedway with the Craftsman Truck Series, running the Baptist Health 200. Matt, what ultimately came out of all this?
Well, what came out of it, considering I didn't watch a single lap of it last night. In his bid for only the 2nd ever sweep of all top 3 series, Kyle Larson took the win in the 4th Spire truck that was 3 out of the 4 of them with the same scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about hating being a spotter or
yeah.
a person calling the corners for the NASCAR racing.
Yeah.
The cooperative effort between PRN and MRN.
Yep. Lane Riggs 2nd, Corey Heim was 3rd, Tyler Ankrum 4th, Daniel Hemrick 5th, Ross Chastain 6th, Jake Garcia 7th, Chandler Smith 8th, Grant Enfinger 9th, and Caden Honeycutt rounding out the top 10.
I've heard a lot of talk this week, and there used to be a situation like Kyle Busch, for example. He swept the Bristol weekend not just once but twice. Used to be a time when you'd learn a lot from being able to take and get these laps going. But considering how different now the vehicles are from trucks to Xfinity to Cup, I mean, is there really that much Kyle Larson's learning from taking these different vehicles out there?
No.
Other than the fact that, hey, I'm comfortable out riding by the wall, and I'm going to be more than happy to continue to do it.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
Nothing, because horsepower and the overall setup of the cars are so much different.
Yeah, and the feel of them is just ridiculously different.
A ton.
Corey Heim is the only driver running for points in the Truck Series who has wins. He's got 2 of them, so he's locked in. In on points, Ty Majeski. Then you got Chandler Smith, Grant Enfinger, Stuart Friesen, Tyler Ankrum, Daniel Hemrick, Lane Riggs, Jake Garcia, Caden Honeycutt round out the top 10. Caden Honeycutt's got a fairly slim 2-point lead over Ben Rhodes for that final playoff spot. Tanner Gray not all that far back. He's only 4 back, and Gio Ruggiero in 13th. He's 7 back, so still very early, yes, in the Truck Series, but still very tight as well. So let's see what else we got here. What's coming up later today? How about the Xfinity Series going to be in South Florida? This is going to be round 2 of 3 for Kyle Larson in his bid to sweep the weekend. It's the Hard Rock Bet 300, air on the CW, MRN Radio, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. He'll be driving the number 17, HendrickCars.com, Hendrick Motorsports Xfinity Series ride. It's hard to bet against him. Sunday actually begins overseas. The Heineken Chinese Grand Prix on the Shanghai International Circuit. This is a 16-turn, 3.2-mile-long road course going to get rolling at a time when I'm going to be studying the inside of my eyelids very carefully, asleep, I hope. 3 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Central Time here in the United States of America. But there will be people watching. I can guarantee it. And if I happen to wake up in the middle of the night, I'll probably try and find it too. By the way, China also first sprint race of the 2025 season. Lewis Hamilton not only claimed his first pole for Ferrari and only his second race weekend with him, he led the sprint wire to wire, got his first win for the historic Italian mark. Hamilton gets the better of Max Verstappen off the start. Late in the race, Oscar Piastri gets his McLaren around Verstappen, claims second, relegating Verstappen to third. George Russell was fourth, trailed by Yuki Tsunoda, Kimi Antonelli, and Lando Norris. Remember, only the top 8 score points. Filling out the top 10, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso. Here's an interesting note. All 20 drivers finished the sprint race, and all 20 of them finished on the lead lap. Now, it was only 19 laps, but still. The guy who finished last, Alpine rookie Jack Doohan, he finished 20th. He was being caught by Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was pretty much within sight of Doohan, but laps ran out. Piastri, again, took second place in the sprint, used it to claim the pole for tonight's race, or tomorrow morning's race, however you want to look at it. He will be on the pole. George Russell will start on the outside of the front row along with him. And then let's see what else is next. How about the NHRA? Live, they're going to be next up with the NHRA Arizona Nationals. The eliminations will get rolling. Get this. 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central.
9 o'clock Phoenix time.
That's early to start hearing 11,000 pounds of nitro power. But, yeah, they're going to get it rolling then. If you'd like to watch them on TV, you can. On delay. You'll have to wait until Fox Sports 1 starts airing them at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, with the coverage set to run 3 hours. That'll happen after the Cup Series coverage comes to an end. The other 2 races start at the same time. We'll go with the one that's likely to finish first. That's going to be IndyCar's Thermal Club IndyCar Grand Prix, slated to get underway on Fox and IRN Radio, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. And then over in Homestead, Miami, the Cup Series getting the Straight Talk Wireless 400 underway on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Busy weekend. The only series that we cover on a regular basis not racing this weekend is Formula E. Everybody else is in action.
Had to kind of do a little bit of foreshadowing just for a moment, but CW.
We have our growing pains.
Why are we going full remote broadcast for Homestead this week? Why?
Phoenix, I could have understood it. That's a cross-country trip.
Why?
This baffles me.
Why?
Full
Do
studio.
not. You're even though you've had a few growing pains to start, you still get an A rating from me overall for the start of the year. Do not start down the path that Fox Sports has went with the Truck Series, and look what the Truck Series broadcasts have turned into.
Yeah.
They're very lackluster.
The biggest problem, and you and I know this, I mean, you and anybody who's been to a race can attest to this. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting up in a booth or out in the grandstands. If you are relegated to just one viewpoint, in other words, you're watching, say, one car for the entire race, there's a really good chance you're going to miss something. And that's the same thing with camera angles, because they can only put really, I know that they can put box in box, but CW's not going to do that a whole lot unless they're going to commercials, and then you'll have a commercial in one box, and then you'll see the race going on in another. So you're not going to have more than one camera angle on the action. And the good part about having the people live there in person is that in a 3-man booth, the announcer can be talking about one particular place while the analysts are looking elsewhere on the track and going, oh, by the way, while you're looking over here in turn 3 at the leader, coming out of turn number 2, there's a wreck.
Yeah.
You can't do that when you're remote studio.
You can't, and it's why the radio broadcasting side of this sport
It's huge.
has, in my eyes, eclipsed television broadcast.
In a lot of ways.
Because you've got actual eyes pending where your PRN or MRN save face for maybe one or two people that's with that broadcast team. There's actual eyes on everything while you're listening to who's picking it up, and you're picking up your point. All right, I'm picking it up from here. If Steve's in 1 and 2 and I'm going down the backstretch of Talladega, when he hands it, I know the exact point he's going to hand it to me.
Yep.
And I'm picking it up from here, taking it to turn 3 and 4 to whomever. If Kyle Rickey's in turn 4, I'm handing it to Kyle Rickey at the middle of turn 3 and 4, and he's got it from the turn 4 down to the short chute.
Mm-hmm.
That's why radio, in my eyes, has eclipsed television, because television, why this notion we've got to go remote is beyond me.
Yeah.
It takes away from the aspect of the entire broadcast.
You know, it's always been the job of a radio person, regardless of what sport it is that they're calling, to try and paint the picture for the person that's listening to it so they can actually visualize it in their mind. And MRN, PRN, IRN, they do all three of them do a fantastic job of it.
Yeah.
You know, and the NASCAR Racing Network does as well, but there's a reason for that. Again, it's the cooperative effort between MRN and PRN. They've got all the veterans doing it.
Yeah.
Television commentators, and even Mike Joy, to a certain extent, is kind of falling back on this. They're relying on what you see on the camera coming through to your TV screen. They're relying on that to be that instead of helping paint the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to get back to painting that picture. And that's the sad part about it, is the fact that they've kind of gotten lazy when it comes to that.
Unfortunately.
And then there are some people that never did it in the first place. You know, and sorry, I hate to be saying this, but I'm going to point it out, flat out. Looking at you, Jamie Little. Let's see, where are we going? How about let's start off with Formula One, because there's a lot of news coming out of there. Got a big penalty that was handed out to him, but there was an appeal. Did it work?
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
So I just got to thinking, 7 days ago, right about now, we were looking at that self-same radar and going, holy moly, what a weekend and what a day we're in for.
Yep.
And now there's nothing significant on the radar. What a difference a week makes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hope you and your family were able to make it through safely. Know that a couple of people lost their lives last Saturday here in the state of Alabama alone. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to all of them who not only lost their lives, but their family and their friends, and those people who had significant damage too. And some of them are in the listening area of the flagship station, and plenty of them obviously can be checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube. So, yeah, we're thinking about you. All right. Let's talk about some Formula One situations here. And interesting to note that Kimi Antonelli had a great race, debuted with the top 10 finish, but he was actually handed a penalty by Formula One stewards. They made a ruling that his team had released him unsafely from his pit stall, and they ruled at the time that he had cut off the Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg. Now, this was a penalty initially that dropped Antonelli from 4th to 5th in his debut as a full-time Mercedes driver. But Mercedes officials acted quickly. They sought a review of the video by submitting, as they said, this is Mercedes, quote, video from the roll hoop camera, which was previously unavailable, unquote. Why don't the race stewards have the availability of every single camera angle?
As many angles as Sky Sports has, combined with other officiating angles, that's a hard one to answer. It's inexplicable.
I have no idea how they don't have access to this. But giving them the video and looking at that and some other video that the officials said that they didn't have at hand at the time of the ruling, they did rescind the penalty, and the 5 seconds that had been added to his total time were taken back off, moved him back up into 4th place in his debut for the Silver Arrows. The race stewards released a statement that explained the restoration of 4th place. Quote, it is clear car 12, Antonelli's car, did not cross into the fast lane until a significant distance down the pit lane, and only after the driver had checked his mirror to confirm clearance with car 27, that of Nico Hülkenberg. The roll hoop camera shows also he had sufficient room to safely pass the McLaren pits without risk to the McLaren mechanics. And I get it. I mean, you and I have seen pit road. Doesn't matter whether it's IndyCar, NASCAR, Formula One, Formula E, whatever. We, just like you have as well, watching it on television or whatever. Maybe you've been to some races. You can understand that things can get a little bit tight on pit road in whatever series that there is. But You're going to make a snap decision like that without having all the details? If I'm the race stewards right now, I'm starting to try and figure out a way to be able to get a hold of all of the. I mean, if you're going to do a review, let's do a full-on, exhaustive review so that you don't have to go back at the end of the race and go, oh, by the way, sorry, we did it wrong.
Yeah, kind of like some other series officials that have snap decisions on pushing that little button.
I wonder who you're talking about. Let's see. Is there trouble already after race 1 with one of the Red Bull rookies?
No.
No. Probably not. But still, Isaac Hadjar is a rookie for the subsidiary team Racing Bulls. He crashed out on the formation lap. Now, he's far from the first driver to ever crash out on a formation lap, and certainly far from the first rookie to ever do it.
And won't be the last.
So he actually technically hasn't started his first F1 race yet. Got out of the wrecked racer, and as the 20-year-old was walking back to the paddock, it was noted he was shedding some tears. And that led Anthony Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton's father, to begin to console him some. On the other hand, one of his bosses, noted hard, I'm just going to leave it at that, Red Bull's Helmut Marko, his boss, apparently had little to no sympathy. Said afterward in an interview, quote, Isaac Hadjar did a little bit of crying after his crash. That was a bit embarrassing. Well, what do you think Hadjar felt? Put yourself in okay, you're the driver. You put yourself in Isaac Hadjar's situation. Well, I get it. Emotions can vary from person to person, but you're going to do this with the high expectations of a Red Bull, which you and I well know what those high expectations are.
Sometimes too high.
Sure. So put yourself in Isaac Hadjar's position. Do you feel that it is embarrassing that he might have cried a little bit?
You're 20 years old. From the let's word it from the European side of motorsport, European Eastern world. Let's call it that.
Okay.
Whether you're Asia, Middle East, European,
You're part of the old world.
part of the there you go. Part of motorsports and part of the old world. Let's call it that. It's everything you work for. You've got your shot. It's motorsports. Mistakes are going to happen, whether they are deliberate or unintentional. Mistakes are going to happen. I can see where it's like, oh my God, I just did that, or what did I just do?
Emotions.
It's frustrating because you didn't even get to take your first lap.
Sure. Emotions get a little bit of the better of you.
It's called heat of the moment. So, my message over to Milton Keynes in England, where that little building sits with Red Bull on the side of it, and wherever Marco's office is, shut up.
His might be in Switzerland, where the headquarters are.
Switzerland, yeah, Milton Keynes,
Maybe.
wherever they are.
Wherever it is, yeah.
Wherever it is, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
The good news is that it looks like Marco pretty much is alone in his viewpoint. Hamilton Sr. talked to media after it. He said, quote, "When I saw it happen, my heart just sank for him," talking about Hajar. Not just for him, for his parents, for everything they've done to work hard to get to this one point. And it's like it got snatched from you. So I thought, you know what? I need to go and tell this kid, keep your head high, walk tall. You're going to come back. Inside the halls of Red Bull, Marco may also be alone. Team boss Christian Horner was sympathetic to Isaac Hajar. He said, quote, "It was quite heart-wrenching to see him so gutted in his first Grand Prix. I think the positives he needs to take out of it when he reflects on the weekend, he performed very well through the practices and qualifying. You forget, these guys are just kids, really."
There's the key word.
Mm-hmm.
Guys are just kids.
He's 20 years old. He continued, Horner did, quote, "Obviously a lot of emotion for him today, but I think when he strips it back, there's an awful lot of positives he can take out of the weekend. He's got many bright days ahead of him." Now, and again, I'm going to state this because I am fully on Isaac Hajar's side. Because
Sure.
you're going to work for Red Bull Racing, which, yes, fantastic history. There's no doubt about it. Sebastian Vettel, 4 straight drivers' titles. Sebastian Vettel's on a 4 title heater himself. And Red Bull has, 7 Constructors' Cup titles that I can think of?
I think so, yeah.
So maybe 8. So you're racing for a very good team. But the thing about it is Red Bull also is a bit of a buzzsaw when it comes to your young drivers, considering how they've historically picked them up, and when they either don't perform or underperform, discard them. Look up Nick DeVries, just as example number 1. So to start off by crashing out on the formation lap, 20 years old, yeah, I might have cried a little bit too. Thinking, holy crap, this is a bad start to my racing career with Red Bulls. How long am I going to be here?
More out of frustration.
Sure. Either way, there's a lot of things going on here. But again, somewhere in the back of your mind as a rookie, and Liam Lawson's got to be thinking the exact same thing because he stumbled out of the gate too. How much pressure is on me? And oh, by the way, that much pressure just got added to it because I've had this bad start.
Yeah, and he's in the house car.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of going back to Oscar Piastri, this was interesting. So we mentioned the fact that he spun out. He actually got stuck. But he was able to get himself unstuck after spinning out and getting into the grass. And he gave a rather unusual source some credit for that recovery last Sunday in Australia. Like I said, during the race recap, we mentioned it. It was a late race shower. Caught the field kind of unaware. The leaders, both McLarens, actually spun out. Lando Norris made a quick recovery, retained the lead. Piastri, again, got stuck for nearly an entire lap of the field, and it dropped him from second to pretty much the rear of the field. However, something he did on a TV show, not necessarily affiliated with F1, did help him. He said after the race in media interviews that he got the car in reverse and then going slow on the wet grass just to be able to keep momentum up but not spin the tires and get the car stuck. He was able to get to a runoff area, in other words, pavement, where he then grabbed first gear and was able to bring the car to the attention of his pit crew. When asked how did he learn it specifically, he said, I was just trying to stay in the race, so I tried to go forward, couldn't. Good thing I'd spent some time in the off-season trying to learn how to reverse a tractor at television personality Jeremy Clarkson's farm. I think it came in handy. I was just trying to get myself back in the race. Clarkson is a name you might remember because he was a presenter for Top Gear on the BBC at the height of its popularity and then moved over to Amazon Prime with the Grand Tour and other series, including Clarkson's Farm, which right now we've just given a whole lot of press to, so I expect the viewership of that particular series to go up. To me, for the radio side of things, okay, let's pull back the curtain on radio a little bit. I've been married to my wife. Thank God she's put up with me now for 24 years. But I told her flat out off the beginning of this. Producer John knows this as well because he's been in radio almost as long as I have. Everything is show prep. There isn't a thing that you do or that people around you do that you don't take some sort of note of and think, could I use that the next time I'm on the air?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is show prep. Same exact thing. You sit there and you think about, wait a minute. He's talking about putting a tractor on a farm in reverse, and that somehow helps him in a Formula One car? You wouldn't think those two are related. Everything is show prep. Everything is race prep. I mean, a vehicle is a vehicle when you stop and think about it. It's four wheels, a motor, and a steering wheel.
Yeah.
You might be surprised exactly how much you can take from one thing to the next.
Just how to get something out of dirt.
Yeah.
Or gravel or whatever.
It may be unusual, but you know what? You do what you got to do, and you learn where you got to learn. And if he learned from Clarkson's farm by running around on a tractor, more power to you, Oscar. I think it's great. When we come back, we'll continue talking about Formula One. F1 teams about to start getting a little bit closer scrutiny. Been talking about a lot of flex on those wings. We'll get more into it when we come back.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. we're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Matt Nicholson, Steve West, producer John in the background. We appreciate his efforts as well. And let's continue to talk about Formula One here where we began the show. Because F1 teams this weekend starting to face much closer scrutiny regarding something that teams were able to really kind of get away with a lot more last year. It's flexing bodywork, most specifically the wings, front and rear. A lot of attention got paid to McLaren and their front wings last year, but the rear wings got to watch out for those too. It's largely credited with vaulting McLaren up to the top of the Constructors' Cup title situation last year. Officials in the FIA and Formula One have decided to clamp down a little bit on that kind of bodywork flex. They're going to be doing more specific tests starting this weekend, and they did single out the rear wing on this. Again, front and rear wings last year did meet the rules by the letter of the law, and they would easily pass the FIA's static load test. The funny thing was under load at speed, we know this, you're affected by things like air. Mm-hmm. And with that much turbulence, especially with other cars around you, creating what we have come to know as dirty air in the racing world, it would begin to flex a little bit more, and that allowed the air to pass over and through the wing a little bit easier. That being the key words right there, through. So in order to study it a little bit more heading into the season, officials had every single team, all 10 teams, all 20 cars fitted with high-speed cameras so that their cars could be seen. Really what you could see is the wings in action at speed. After looking at the footage in Australia, FIA officials announced that they were going to enforce stricter testing on the upper part of the rear wing starting this weekend in China in order to knock down the flexing of the elements of and around the DRS, the drag reduction system, that little flap that opens up during specific segments on the track if you're within a second of the person in front of you. That allows you to go a little bit faster because it just allows the air to flow through the wing instead of going up over it. They're hoping to minimize the potential of something of a mini DRS effect. Wasn't a problem in Australia. All the teams the FIA stated were legal under the new rule. The new for 2025 rule regarding that area reads this, quote, if 75 kilograms of vertical load is applied on either the extremity of the rear wing main plane, the distance between the main plane and the flap, also known as the slot gap, must not vary by more than 2 millimeters. They added this week that from forthcoming Grand Prix in Shanghai, this limit will be reduced to 0.5 millimeters. Due to the short notice for Shanghai, only a tolerance of 0.25 millimeters will be added to this new limit. So they're basically dropping it by increments before they go full from 2 to half a millimeter in tolerance in that flap that would normally open up for the DRS.
It's tight, but I watched the slow-mo video of what they're talking about.
Yeah?
It's
You see what they're talking about?
Oh yeah, easy. It's easy to see.
Okay.
When you what they're saying and what you got to know what you're looking at, where that flex point comes in at, it's leaving just enough of a gap to where it's got that extra added slipstream of air, and it just opens it up that much more. It gives it basically is bonus DRS.
This is that classic example that we have talked about for a very, very long time, and Smokey Yunick might have been the best known person to do it within the world of NASCAR. Is you take the rule book and you read it not for what is, but you read it for what is not in there. Yeah, exactly. And I think it was Smokey Yunick who basically said, if it's not listed in the rule book, it's legal.
It was.
And boy, did he try so much of that. He tried almost every trick in the book. You want to know why the rule book in NASCAR looks the way that it looks? Start with Smokey Yunick. He's the main reason.
Yunick, Evernham, Canals.
Yeah, absolutely. They have all had major impacts on this rule book. How long have we been saying, Max, if you don't like playing in Formula One, take your helmet and go home? Seems like it's been a few years now. If you ain't happy, don't do it anymore. I get it. You're making a lot of money, but if you're happy doing it, knock it out. If you're unhappy, don't do it anymore. It's just that simple. And after having made plenty of noise stating that he could hang up his F1 helmet at any time, four-time champion Max Verstappen might actually have found something in the future of F1 that might, if it does come to fruition, be enough to keep him racing for a little while. You might remember a few weeks ago we talked about the potential that FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem said about bringing back maybe a V10 engine to Formula One standards. The thing about it is, I don't know whether this is going to happen, but Sulayem added that maybe we could bring back the great sound of a V10 engine because of things like, synthetic fuel. I mean, they're very aware of this whole environmental thing and being zero carbon and blah, 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 right? So you got synthetic fuel coming in and you got all this. But one of the biggest complaints about this current engine is that it is a turbocharged 1.6 liter V6. And it just doesn't have that sound. You know, we all know that sound. We all hear it. We listen to the cars start up in a NASCAR race, whether it's trucks, Xfinity, Cup. You get that V8 burble, which granted is unmuffled, but then again, welcome to race cars. They're not muffled over in Formula One either. But an unmuffled V8 versus an unmuffled turbocharged V6,
big difference.
really big. And then you talk about adding another couple of cylinders onto it and making a V10. Makes even more difference. Could it happen? We don't know. But Verstappen got asked about it because apparently this has become a big subject amongst the media. So when he arrived and did a press conference on Thursday ahead of this week's Chinese Grand Prix, he said of the possibility that it might actually, help him stick around a little bit longer. Quote, maybe. It's definitely more exciting than what we have now, referring to the V6 turbocharged engines. He continued, quote, I'm not in charge of the rules, but of course the pure emotion of the sport, the V10, is definitely much better than what we have now. I remember when I was a kid, you'd walk around, you'd have the noise of the engines, it just brings in so much more. Even if the speed of the car was maybe slower, you just get the feeling that you got from an engine like that. It's just something that you can't describe compared to what we have now. He'd know. His dad is an F1 champion, Jos Verstappen. He was hanging around F1 paddocks for a long time.
To a degree, I can see where he's coming from.
Absolutely.
I can see you because I'll give an example from me. When I got going and when I got started, I didn't start in the smaller divisions where you got the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder, what they call the pony cars. Mm-hmm. No, I went for the gusto and had my foot behind a high horsepower engine my whole career.
Sure.
And that's all I'm used to. To a degree, this 1.6 V6 is all he's used to.
Yeah.
Now, for a couple of races that I ran, had my foot behind the wheel of a crate engine. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to use the Harry Hogg line or the Tim Dalen line, but I was a fish out of water because I didn't know I didn't know how to control low horsepower. Mm-hmm. But I could. The sound was so distinctly different.
Sure.
Versus the smaller horsepower versus the larger horsepower.
Yeah.
Which V6 to V10, like we don't know what horsepower levels is difference in it, but we'll just use the V6 to V10. V6 obviously lower horsepower.
One would think, yeah. I mean, it could be detuned. You could detune a V10, I guess, but still, why would you?
Oh yeah, you can detune anything.
Yeah. So I guess you could, but why would you in comparison to a turbocharged V6?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you and I have both had experience in this. I mean,
V10, you're going to have a ton more horsepower.
You and your racing exploits, places like Talladega Short Track and other tracks, you saw many of the other divisions, and it would range from, truth be told, 4 cylinders all the way up to your V8s. I did it too.
4 cylinders all the way up to 875, 900 horsepower.
Yeah, I did it too when I was a PA announcer, when I was lucky enough to be a PA announcer at the old Birmingham International Raceway. Larry Langford, you're an idiot. We had a division called the Buzz Division, and those were 4-cylinder front-wheel drive cars. Basically, the only thing that you could change is make it race safe. So in other words, you had a roll bar put in there, you had the windshield taken out, safety glass put in, racing seat, and stuff like that. But it was the stock motor. You ran the stock size wheels, and effectively it was just what car did you pick? Mm-hmm. All the way up to the late models with the V8s that were on asphalt. And you want to talk about a massive difference in the sound of the cars. Yeah, there's a huge difference because we saw 4-cylinders, we saw straight 6s, we saw V6s, and we saw V8s. Mm-hmm. Saw and heard them all.
Yep.
Wide range, all of it kind of fun, truth be told, because you got a lot of people out there who are just getting their racing career started. You got people that are racing lifers. So you had all different kinds of talent levels. So it really did. It made it a lot of fun to watch on a little short track on a Friday or a Saturday night. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the vast, wide range in how those engines all sounded, it is huge. And there is an allure to it as well. And anybody who's into cars, male, female, doesn't matter, young, old, doesn't matter. You can tell the difference when a car starts up, and some of them you'll go, okay. And other ones you'll go, ooh, what was that? Some just make you sit up and pay attention. A V10 will make you sit up and pay attention.
That's one thing that I have yet to have my ears on and hear from a horsepower, from an engine sound standpoint, mm-hmm. is an F1 car.
Sure. Yeah.
Heard Indy, heard NASCAR all the way down through. And the sounds between the Xfinity cars versus Ilmores versus Cup motors, there is a clear distinction when they have the same header pattern going out the same side of the car, not the cars they got now where they got the dual headers out each side and it sounds like rolling thunder.
Which we're not complaining about, by the way. We like the sound of that. So it's just different.
NHRA awaits.
Yeah, absolutely. Also checking in on it and asked about it, 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton seemed to be on the same side as Verstappen. When he was asked, he said this, quote, "There's no secret that a V6 has never sounded great. I remember the first time I came into Formula One in 1996 at Spa." Would that be V10 era? I can't remember when the V10 era was. I think he's raced in the V10 era. I'll put it that way. He said, "I was driving. Michael Schumacher was coming through turn 1. My rib cage just vibrated. If we're able to move back to those amazing sounding engines and sustainability, we're still able to meet the sustainable goals. Why not? I'm with you. Why not? Let's do it. Bring it. I'll be all about it." Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we've talked about Cadillac coming into F1 next year, and with them coming in, that means 11 teams, and that meant that F1 officials had to go back to the 10 teams that are already on the starting grid and have them re-up on the Concord agreement and then get Cadillac to agree to it too, so that they could be racing everybody under the same rules as agreed by all 11 teams beginning next year, because the current one only covered the initial 10 teams. Last Saturday, after our show was done, it was confirmed all those 10 teams and Cadillac have indeed signed off on the new 2026 Concord agreement, securing the teams and the series, truth be told, long term. F1 officials said that all 11 teams coming on board means that F1 has, quote, never been in a stronger position, and all stakeholders have seen positive benefits and significant growth, and thanked all the teams for their engagement during the process to reach the best outcome for the sport. And there's a good reason for this. You want to make sure that everybody agrees to it. There wasn't really any significant change from the Concord agreement that the 10 teams had signed to what now Cadillac has been added to. But there was probably some maybe small wording changes in there just to kind of match some of the rules changes that they've been making. So, yeah, they got to make sure that everybody signs off on it. I get it.
If V6s have been used since 2014.
Yeah. Before that, I want to say it was V8s, but I don't remember when the V10 era was. I know that there was a V10 era. I just can't tell you when it was. And we're going to look that up. And while Matt's doing that, we're going to take this break, and when we come back, we'll find out when the V10 era was, and we'll also talk about a very unfortunate passing within the world of Formula One, and then we'll start to turn our attention to things like NASCAR, IndyCar, and the NHRA. No IHRA news, no IROC news, no Formula E news this week, but we also have a fantasy update coming up in the next hour as well. Stay close. We're only halfway through this edition of CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Hour number 2, producer John producing remotely while Matt and myself, Steve West, are in studio. We appreciate you joining us again, whether it's on the flagship station, 95.1 The Mountain, or via CRN Live on YouTube. And thank you very much for those of you that have been going over there and subscribing. We very much appreciate that. We've been noticing that uptick in numbers, and man, we can't say thank you enough. All right, when we left off, we were talking about the potential return of V10s, and I remember a V10 era in Formula One. I couldn't tell you exactly when it was. Matt, you have a chart.
I do, all the way from the beginnings of F1, from 1947 through 1988, there was an unrestricted configuration.
So basically, run what you bring.
Run what you bring, basically.
There's a part of me that would love to get back to that.
From 1989 up to 1999, you could run up to a V12.
Okay.
2000 to 2005 was the V10 era.
Wow, that was amazingly short.
From 06 to 08 was the 2.4 liter 90-degree V8 configuration.
Okay.
09 to 13 was a 90-degree V8 plus KERS configuration.
Okay. And then that's when
2014 to current
V6.
was the 94-degree V6 plus the MGUs. But in 2007 and 2008, it's very intriguing to me that there was, from 1947 up to 2006, there was an unrestricted RPM limit. 07 and 08,
They put a restriction on this?
there was a restriction put on for 19,000 RPM. 09 to 13, they scaled it to 18,000.
Was that all?
14 to 21, 15,000. And from 2022 through what looks at to be the 26 and beyond, unrestricted.
Love it.
If I had
It's
my
a
foot,
high revving engines going.
if I had my foot behind 19,000 RPMs,
Imagine 19,000 in a V8. Wow.
you would throw a rod from here to Seattle.
Good God almighty. Ugh, that's just unreal. Some sad news from the world of Formula One. The passing of Eddie Jordan. Eddie Jordan, born at the end of March 1948 in Dublin, Ireland, was the second of two children. He was kind of late to the idea of becoming a racer. Graduated high school, he considered things like becoming a priest, potentially becoming a dentist, took a short course in accounting, and that led him to becoming a bank teller. But in 1970, the banking industry in the country of Ireland went on strike. So while out of a job instead of walking picket lines, Eddie Jordan went to the beach. He happened upon kart racing on the Isle of Jersey. As the summer ended, he returned to Dublin, bought his first kart, and began his racing career kind of as a weekend and nighttime hobby. But he got so good the very next year, 1971, not only did he enter, but he won the Irish Kart Championship. By 1974, he was running Formula Ford up to Formula 3 in 1975. However, a severe crash early in 1976 had him sitting the majority of that year out. By 1978, he was back to his winning ways, won the Formula Atlantic title that year, moved back to Formula 3 for 1979. And while he got spot starts in Formula 2 and did some testing for McLaren, which led to a 24 Hours Le Mans start in 1981, he began to realize that his dream of getting into F1 as a driver was pretty unlikely. So he then turned his attention to getting there some other way. And he founded Eddie Jordan Racing in 1979. That helped several drivers on their way up from the lower rungs of the F1 ladder up to the top. Got his own team into F1 in 1991 when he founded Jordan Grand Prix. He gave a young Michael Schumacher a ride. You might have heard of him. Best year for the franchise, 1998. That included a 1-2 finish for his drivers Damon Hill and Ralph Schumacher at the Belgian Grand Prix. That was followed up by them finishing third in the Constructors' Cup race in 1999. But just 3 years later, by 2002, things had started to go south. He lost his engine deal with Honda. His only option left for that year, because it happened so late before the 2002 season began, that the only option left was the more expensive Cosworth engine. And then one of his sponsors, DHL, left. Another, Benson & Hedges, backed off of their sponsorship, so he began to struggle financially. The team soldiered on in 2003, actually did get a win in Brazil with Giancarlo Fisichella, which was the first for the driver, and as it turned out, the last for Cosworth Ford, as the company was ready to back out of F1 before they finally ended up returning, which they'll do next year. It was also the last win for Jordan Grand Prix. By 2005, he ended up selling the team to a Canadian businessman who then sold it again, and it was then sold again in 2008 to what became Force India. And now that very same team is Aston Martin. Aston Martin went through, by the way, 2 more ownership changes, still using the old Jordan GP headquarters. Pretty cool stuff. By 2009, though, Jordan was back in the Formula One business. He joined BBC's coverage of the series for a show entitled Grand Prix. When Britain's Channel 4 pried the coverage of F1 away from the BBC, he moved with it and was working with them early this year as the 2025 season was preparing to get underway. He did not travel to Australia. At the same time, he wrote a monthly column for a magazine called F1 Racing. It's a European-based thing. He joined the famed Top Gear series in 2016. Wow, 2 Top Gear references in one show. I haven't done that in a long time. And doing several other media-related projects over the course of his years. He was also a quite successful businessman and investor. The most recent one, something that we began to talk about here on this show, something we mentioned late last year when he joined up with a group to purchase the London Irish Rugby Club. They'd fallen upon some hard times, got kicked out of the British Premier Rugby League for lack of payment of things like player salaries. The intent was to get it back into the British Premier Rugby League. He and his wife, Marie, married in 1979. They had 4 children together, but just last year, in addition to becoming part of the new rugby team ownership group, he announced he had also been diagnosed with what he termed an aggressive form of prostate and bladder cancer in the early part of 2024. It was from that Eddie Jordan passed away on Thursday. Eddie Jordan, 76 years old. Now, Eddie Jordan, as we noted, owned the team that has become what is now Aston Martin, the latest iteration of that team. And they unveiled a special tribute to Jordan that they're going to put on the cars and on their fire suits for this weekend's race in China. You can see this on CRN Live on YouTube, thanks to producer John. For those who are not watching it, it's got his name in white against the green British Racing green background of the Aston Martin car. It's got a shamrock and a circle in white. The top leaf of the 3-leaf plant is, though, red and in the shape of a heart. And I get it. They had to do it quick, but I appreciate the fact that they were able to go through and actually be able to do that pretty quickly.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure.
This is a guy who his time, while maybe short, certainly was impactful in the Formula One world. So
without a doubt,
he'll be missed. I remember watching him on a few episodes of Top Gear and thinking this guy's got a pretty quick wit.
No doubt.
You know, he was one of those people that was able to transition from being not necessarily a face or a voice that you would have thought of to transitioning to in front of the camera with a microphone really, really easily.
Yeah,
and
he was.
It's not an easy thing to do. You know, the number of people who think that what, for example, Matt and John and I do on a weekly basis on this show think it's cool and it's like, man, I wish I could do that. Most of the time you get put behind a microphone, you suddenly get freaked out.
It happens.
Because they're like, hey, what the heck in the world? What am I going to talk about? I don't know what to do now.
It does happen.
So, yeah. So, congratulations, and sad to say, and our thoughts and our prayers go out to the friends, the family, and all the people who have known Eddie Jordan over the years. Turning our attention to the Cup Series here, he got a penalty from it, but a whole lot of people, including us, if you watch this week's Cross Flags, we're kind of praising Christopher Bell's actions on this pit stop. We talked about this again during Cross Flags, but I'm going to talk about it again because I think it deserves it because we can actually give some pictures to it as well. Christopher Bell, during the race last weekend in Vegas, pulled out of his own pit stall, only a few pit stalls after pit in, and quickly realized that he had a loose wheel on the left side of his number 20 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. So he got on the radio and he noted it. And this all prompted his crew chief to tell him to find another Joe Gibbs Racing pit stall to pull into. His spotter was quick enough to help him find the pit stall of the 19 car of Chase Briscoe. Video replay showed that the pit crew were initially a little bit confused as things happened so quickly. If you look at the picture on CRN Live on YouTube that producer John will pull up, you'll realize that the front tire changer especially, he was starting to go around to the right side because he didn't realize which side it was on. Things happened that fast. But again, they were able to get the wheels tightened. They sent him out quickly. Now, this is a penalty. Make no mistake about it. This is a penalty. This is pitting outside the box. You're assigned a pit box for the 20 car. You're expected to pit inside that pit box. If any part of the car is sitting outside of the lines, that's a penalty. Am I wrong, Matt?
No.
All right.
No.
Doesn't matter. Could be just an inch over. Could be half the car's over. Doesn't matter. In this case, the entire car was out. But here's the thing. He didn't incur a potentially bigger penalty. And that's where the praise comes in. Because if you think about it, if that tire had come off on pit road, there's suspensions involved.
Pit road is 2-lap penalty.
I'm sorry, pit road is 2-lap penalty. Mm-hmm. That's a 2-lap penalty if that tire and wheel comes off on pit road. He's automatically 2 laps down. Boom. You're almost all but done at that point in time. If he actually ignored it and said, okay, I'm going to go around and come back in, and that tire comes off under yellow, yeah, it might hit another car, but it's probably not going to do as much damage. So there's good news there. But the bad news is that it came off while you're on the racetrack. There you get suspensions for crew members. That's a problem.
Yep.
And you could do some damage to the car because you're riding on 3 wheels. If somehow this wheel holds on until after you go green, now you got a whole lot more speed. And if that wheel comes off, that's a much bigger problem.
Right.
Forget just the suspensions. That could create some damage. So, in this case, what did he incur as a penalty? Tail end of the longest line.
Which is, I think, is fair.
That's a fair trade-off by far.
So now, I said this the other day, now Pandora's box is wide open.
So NASCAR decided that they're going to try and clarify this a little bit more. Okay? NASCAR said that they talked to all the teams leading up to this weekend, and this, they said, really doesn't matter what level of racing you're talking about, but obviously we're talking about the Cup Series in this particular situation because the example is Christopher Bell. They'll let them know that while there will not be any further penalty to either the 20 crew or the 19 crew for this, here's exactly what's going to happen if another situation of pitting in a, quote, competitor's box, whether they're a teammate or not, happens. It'll be one of 2 possibilities. Either to do what happened to Bell, which is to restart at the tail end of the longest line, or 2, you get a pass-through penalty. This will happen if said pitting in a competitor's box happens while the race is going green. In other words, you did this on a green flag pit stop.
Mm-hmm.
This is what NASCAR calls a flag status penalty. Will include not only tightening the lug nuts of another car, but it would include the removal of a fuel can, a wrench, or a jack that the car ends up taking out of their own stall. On the other hand, if, using Bell as an example, he were to go into Briscoe's pit stall for competition adjustments, then Bell would get a penalty that would drop him at least 1 lap down. So in other words, if he just happens to forget and drive off and they left the wrench in the window, he could actually go into Briscoe's pit stall still, the 19 team take the wrench out, start at the tail end of the longest line.
Which that's, like I said, that's beyond more than fair because you've got plenty of time to get that wrench out of the window, or you really can't say nothing about it if a fuel can gets attached because things happen and they won't detach. Yeah. Things happen. But in regards to these single source lugs nuts, wheel lugs, whatever the heck you want to call them.
And you and I went down this road during Crossed Flags too. We were asking what in the world happened because we hadn't heard anything from Daytona or Atlanta or Coda or Phoenix that seemed to be on the level of what we were hearing in Vegas. So I asked you what you thought the problem might be.
I honestly think there's a bad batch of these things. Bad batch of these wheel nuts. Because there are springs that are on these wheel nuts that are on the back side that when they get to a point and they get past a certain point, they lock. Mm-hmm. That keeps them from backspinning.
All right.
So if that spring was to break when you hit the lug on there, because when you get it on there and you hear brr, three burps, that sounded crazy. 3 burps. You know it's on there because those wrenches have so much torque with them behind hitting it. You know it's there. Boom.
And haven't I heard that when they're installed correctly, as they're going along, they will actually tighten themselves up? I think I've heard something to that effect.
I think so.
Okay. I don't know exactly how all that works.
So if that spring, that spring was I call it just the back spring. If the back spring was to break, guess what? It's got the ability to back itself off.
Yeah.
Like Kyle Busch's situation. He was under green when it came off. Mm-hmm. So how can you legitimately put blame on the tire changer or the jack man on that one when it came off under green? Because if it was loose to start with, it would have came off under caution.
You think?
It would have came off under caution. So, like I said, if that spring on that lug was to break, that's the ability to back off because IndyCar uses the same style ones. F1 uses the same style ones. You don't see this problem coming off with the F1 cars and the IndyCar.
But somehow it's still a problem in NASCAR. And we've been using them now for, This is year 4, I think, or year 5.
22, 23, 24, 25. This is year 4.
Year 4. Still getting him wrong. As for that teammate, Chase Briscoe, he revealed to media after Vegas, or before the race in Vegas, I should say, he was going to be driving the Vegas race with an injury, a sprained wrist that he sustained in that multiple car crash the week before in Phoenix. He told NASCAR media, and Jeff Gluck reported this. He said, quote, Briscoe said he smoked his wrist pretty good during that hard crash last week, and it is sprained. Messed with a splint at times this week, but is running without one today. Said he might tape it up tomorrow if it hurts today. As for the Phoenix crash, Briscoe accepted the responsibility on that one. Said, yeah, that's about the biggest you can crash at Phoenix. And it was a big one. Just on that restart, we were kind of 3-4 wide. I just climbed right over the 7's right front. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. We were able to go to the tail, drove back up to 13th. Felt good about our Pro Shops Toyota, but I got myself in a bad spot. Probably trying to fade a little bit more left, just knowing the 77 was on my right rear, and I ended up climbing over the 7's right front. It's unfortunate, but you try to learn from it and not do that again. This is that situation where we have seen, and the first person I have to admit that I ever saw do it was Danica Patrick. They know that they're going to get into a wreck, and the drivers take their hands off the wheel, and just to make sure that they don't do anything else, they cross their arms over their chest. Mm-hmm. Because the truth of the matter is that you get into a wreck, you really don't know how it's going to affect the front wheels and therefore the steering wheel, which might then jerk out of your hand, sprain your wrist, or worse.
Break a thumb, fracture a thumb, break your wrist, sprain your wrist. I do the same thing. I did the same thing and do the same thing. If I know I'm going to get in a wreck, I'll let the wheel go and just hang on.
Yeah.
And just keep your foot on the brake and keep the car locked down as much as possible. And when you get to a slow point and you get the sensation that you know you're clear, get the wheel and gather the car up.
Yeah.
Because I did that one time and it popped and it sprained my left thumb and it did not feel good.
So, yeah, I understand it.
When the wheel spokes do that.
So let's talk about a third Joe Gibbs Racing driver. How about Denny Hamlin? Has not had a whole lot of success on the track lately. Did have some luck in Vegas, though. Hamlin, who is the co-owner of 2311 Racing with Michael Jordan, who's never been shy about his own love of gambling, Denny Hamlin decided he was going to do a little gambling himself. Now, I'm going to give you a break to think about this, but why would we mention this on the show if he didn't win? It's not that he won. It's how much he won. We'll detail that when we come back. Continue on. We've got some Xfinity drivers news. We got some Craftsman Truck Series news to talk about. And oh, by the way, got a Fantasy League update coming up here at the end of the show as well. Stay close. Still got a good ways to go.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. tires only. And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show here as we continue talking a little bit of Cup Series news and mention the fact that Denny Hamlin, the luck on track did not necessarily hold over when he decided to go gambling. He apparently doesn't do this a whole lot. In fact, he talked to Bob Pockris about this from Fox Sports and said, quote, "It's the first time I ever played slots. My buddy plays them all the time. He gave up his hot seat for me and it worked out." What do we mean by worked out? Well, he made a $300 bet at a slot machine and got a jackpot Saturday night and went back to the casino. Got 2 more jackpots within about 30 minutes of each other. Seriously, dude? Good grief. Hamlin might be in line also, by the way, for more sponsorship here. How much, by the way, did he grab in those 3 jackpots for his $300 investment? $275,000. Just going to leave that there. We're going to take this one in chronological order because there are 2 parts to this particular story. According to a report early this week on the Sports Business Journal, Hamlin might be in line for a little more sponsorship on that Joe Gibbs Racing number 11. Progressive Insurance, already big into advertising in NASCAR. In fact, they're the 4th biggest commercial buyer during the 2024 season when it came to NASCAR advertising. They bought more than $1.8 million in advertising during NASCAR races alone. They said that they were looking to partner with the team. So whether or not you like Flo doesn't really matter. It's appearing you're about to see much more of the Ohio-based insurance company who are looking to pair with the right team. And Hamlin's number 11 for Joe Gibbs Racing was considered prime real estate when they lost not only FedEx, but Mavis Tire and Auto during this past offseason. So they were kind of going race to race on sponsorship. Again, that report came out on Tuesday. Thursday, they made it official. Hamlin is set to sport the Progressive Insurance logo, blue and white colors, in 18 races through the remainder of this year, the first of which actually is this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. In addition to the 18 races that they're going to be as a primary sponsor on those races, when they won't be on the hood, they will be an associate sponsor. So they came on big. And, you know, it's kind of surprising for us to say this, but this was a needed shot in the arm for that 11 team because Joe Gibbs, while yes, he's not hurting for money, Joe Gibbs Racing isn't hurting for money. You start going for a significant length of time in the Cup Series without really having a sponsor that you know of to be on the hood, that is going to start affecting your bottom line.
Yep.
And it's going to do it big time and quick. Speaking of Bob Pockris, the Fox Sports NASCAR reporter revealed in the latest in the Hooters Hendrick Motorsports sponsorship saga. You might remember us talking about this last year. Hendrick sued Hooters last August for breach of contract in their sponsorship deal for the 9 car of Chase Elliott. The suit, however, is not going to go to court because it's been settled. Hooters has agreed to pay Hendrick Motorsports $900,000 to settle the suit. Now, that is a hefty sum for a restaurant chain that has fallen on some hard times, but considering what Hendrick Motorsports was seeking, it's a pretty good deal. They were seeking $1.705 million. That would have been worse. So, yeah, Hooters slips out of that situation and gets that taken care of, and the particular paint scheme that you see on CRN Live, you ain't going to see that again. It was a popular one, too. That pretty much was up there when it came to diecast sales every year. People like that Hooters sponsorship. There's a brush fire problem near Homestead Miami Speedway, but NASCAR and Homestead officials insist it will not affect any of the racing plans. They announced late Wednesday evening that a major effort to stop the fires, if not put them out, is in place and in action with the support of the city of Homestead, where the track, again, is located. It may be called Homestead Miami, but it's technically a little south of Miami and Homestead. The city released a statement that read in part, quote, "The NASCAR Cup Series events at the Homestead Miami Speedway are set to continue as scheduled." Same report warns against those with respiratory conditions spending too much time outside. Noted how the fires have been responsible for some brief power outages for Homestead residents as well, and said at the time, again, this was Wednesday, they're about 20% contained. They said they're using every effort they can, and that includes getting aircraft to go get water and dump it on the fires. So I don't know whether they're out or how much more contained it is now.
I think it's fairly contained, just dealing with smoke issues.
And here's the thing. If you're in the central part of the state of Alabama, you're dealing with them too. We're all dealing with them. I've been dealing with them. You might remember a couple of weeks ago I was complaining of a sore throat, and then the next day I lost my voice.
Yeah.
And it came back the next week, and it was really, really rough, and it hasn't really recovered since, because it seems like just about every morning on my drive into work, on my regular job Monday through Friday, and remember, I get up stupid early. I'm on the road at 4 to 4:30 every morning, and I have driven through what looks like fog, and then I'll take a good whiff, and it'll be, oh, that's smoke. And it seems like I've been doing that just about every morning, and it is still affecting my voice. I can tell it. And to a certain extent, it's not bad. It feels like it's gotten even deeper, but at the same time, there's a gravelly aspect to it, because I can't really get rid of that soreness in the throat, because that's what the smoke does.
Right.
So, yeah, we know the feeling. So
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. Been doing a lot of that. To the Xfinity Series, where Las Vegas was the qualifying race for the Dash for Cash series, which begins in earnest this weekend at Homestead, Miami. In other words, they're racing for money this weekend. The 4 drivers who are going to be racing for money are Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, Austin Hill, and Sam Mayer. They're each vying for an extra $100,000. Remember the rules on this here. Only drivers eligible for the playoffs, meaning full-time drivers running for points in the Xfinity Series, are eligible for the Dash for Cash. Qualifying race took the top 4 qualifiers, not necessarily the top 4 finishers. Remember, Eric Almirola finished that race last weekend in Vegas in 2nd place. But since he's not running full-time for points in the Xfinity Series, he ain't eligible for the Dash for Cash. So he goes out. Sam Mayer goes in. Allgaier, Love, Hill, and Mayer. Got a favorite for this?
Allgaier.
Okay.
Allgaier.
Allgaier's been the pick for a couple of people. Sam Mayer's been sneaky good this year, but I don't think we're terrifically surprised by that, because we know what talent Sam Mayer has. And if there's anything good about the Haas factory team's operation, it is the Xfinity Series arm. But of course, you got those 2 RCR cars, Love and Hill. Whew. This is like the all-star Dash for Cash.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Gonna be a fun little thing. Josh Williams, who complained about being sick while racing at Circuit of the Americas a couple of weeks earlier than last week, still feeling the effects of the illness, said it got to him last Saturday at Vegas, to the point where he told the team early in the race to get a driver on standby to take over for him. They did. They got Cowlick Racing's Ty Dillon to get on standby, and sure enough, Williams, by lap 46, said that he had enough. Couldn't go any further, brought his number 11 down pit road, got out of the car. Ty Dillon took it over. Williams, as he was heading down pit road, apologized over the team's radio, said, quote, "Thank you guys, I'm sorry, I just can't do you a good job today." Afterward, he talked to NASCAR.com and said this, quote, "I've been sick since COTA. It's just super hard to breathe in the car, couldn't ever catch my breath. Wasn't safe to stay out there. So thanks to Ty for jumping in for me, and everybody at Cowlick being supportive about it. I'd rather race all the races instead of trying to make it through one night and not make it. I've never felt like this in my whole life. It's the craziest thing I've ever felt before. It just feels like you're drowning." He said his doctors told him he has fluid in his lungs. Sounds like double pneumonia. As a complication from his illness exacerbating the situation he faced last Saturday, said, quote, "I've taken medicine. I'm doing what I need to do. They just said it could take a while, so I wish that it would hurry up." If you got fluid in both lungs, you're putting on a helmet, you're putting on a fire sock, you're putting on all that. Despite everything that they do to try and help a driver in that situation, yeah, it's restrictive, isn't it?
Yeah, I was in a car with a flu one time, and it was not fun.
So you have a little bit of idea of
Yeah, it was
how he's reacting here.
Yeah, it was Collie released just a little bit ago on social media that Ty Dillon's going to practice and qualify the car, and Williams is going to start but get out of the car.
Okay.
Today.
So it's pretty much the same situation.
It's the same situation, yeah. It can be.
And probably not helped by the fact of the wildfires that we were talking about, too.
Probably not. But it's hard, because in which adrenaline kicked in with me, because all I had to do was start the race, and I clinched the championship.
Yeah.
So I was...
You were not going to be deterred there.
No, because there was bonus money involved.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not passing this up. All I had to do was start, and I locked it up with one race left. And I remember calling Dad that week. I said, "We got a problem." I just got diagnosed with the flu.
No.
Uh-oh. I was like, just get the car to the track. I'm coming straight there. I don't want to get around you in a vehicle and you end up getting this mess that I've got. And get out there and adrenaline kicks in. I wasn't going to qualify. I was just going to start at the rear.
Mm-hmm.
But get out there to qualify and heat race. I ended up getting up to the outside pole. And I was like, yeah.
Best laid plans.
It didn't end too well. I was really sick. I've never had a fire suit feel that heavy from where I sweated it off.
Yeah, I got you.
The fire suit weighed about 6 pounds after I got it off.
So here's the deal. This is a change of driver. Like we mentioned, Ty Dillon coming in. He's going to practice. He's going to qualify the car. Then you switch the driver. Josh Williams starts, which, granted, gets him the points credit for wherever Ty Dillon finishes in the race. But because of the fact that Ty Dillon is the one qualifying the car, and then you go to Josh Williams, that's a penalty, means you start at the back of the field. Is there still a minimum? I knew that there once was. I want to say there was a minimum number of laps you had to run.
All you got to do is take the green.
Is that it? Okay.
All you got to do is take the green. You take the green, you could run. He'll run a handful of laps.
Sure.
And then come in, and they'll just probably gamble on lucky dog free passes because the car will should be quick enough to accomplish that feat.
Or they may get lucky enough. You never know. He might run a few laps, and there may be a quick early caution.
Very true.
Which would help him out immensely. We'll see. When the 2026 NASCAR schedules come out, which, by the way, we got another note on this. We're going to get to it in a second. But when they come out, according to some reports, it seems very possible that the Xfinity Series could be making a return to Canada. The last time they raced in the country was 2012. Quebec Journal is reporting that talks are almost finalized between NASCAR and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for Montreal. This is where Formula One races when they go for the Canadian Grand Prix. And it would bring NASCAR back north of the border. Negotiations are initially for the Xfinity Series. Again, this is the 2026 season. NASCAR officials said that would either make it a standalone weekend for the secondary series, could be a doubleheader weekend with the Truck Series. Truck Series used to run in Canada as well, but at, what was that, Mosport?
Canadian Tire, yeah, Mosport.
Used to be called Mosport. Now it's Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So they might bring the Truck Series with them next year as well. But they added that they are going to watch this very closely as to how the fans in and around Circuit Gilles Villeneuve accept this. And if they deem the turnout and the excitement enough, they said that for 2027, they might be willing to bring the Cup Series up and go north of the border. I
don't think Montreal's got the logistical area enough to hold 90 plus haulers. I don't think they do.
Be interesting to watch this situation real carefully. Do they have enough to host? Okay, so if you bring the truck and let's say they bring the truck in the Xfinity Series. Could you drop the Truck Series and then add Cup for 2027? Do you think they got enough for that? I think they do, because there's some feeder series that are going to run with F1. So I think you could cover two. I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I'm not so sure they've got enough to cover three.
It's possible, but it would make more sense to me to run a triple header at Mosport.
Yeah, which we know they have.
It would make way more sense to me to run the triple header there instead of trying to run it in Montreal.
But they want the certainty of the potential fan base of Montreal.
Which the fan base at Mosport when the trucks went up there was
big,
really good as well.
It really was.
For trucks.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. But you said that you came across this just before the show in that somebody at Homestead Miami might have released something from the 2026 schedule, very prematurely?
I saw a flash of it earlier, and now it's apparently been taken down, but that through buying tickets at Homestead Miami through the actual Ticketmaster website, am.ticketmaster.com, that's the mobile website, that it said 2026 Homestead Miami was listed as November the 1st.
Now,
which is championship weekend.
I was about to say, if we equated that to this year on the schedule, because I said, wait a minute, November 1st, would that be the round of 8? And he said, nope, that'd be championship weekend. And you and I were there We saw what happened on that last championship weekend there in 2019. Fans turned out in droves, and the racing was good.
Yeah, that 5:30 a.m. flight the next morning home wasn't very fun.
No, but the weekend was good.
Yeah, because I had to go from Miami to Texas just to get back home.
Yeah, I had to go from Miami to Charlotte to Birmingham. Not as bad, but still. 5:30 in the morning, that's an early pull.
Miami to Houston to Birmingham for here.
That's a real early pull and a long time in the air.
Yeah.
Still got some Xfinity to talk about. Truck Series, NHRA, got the Fantasy League update coming up as well in the final segment of this edition of CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
March 22nd, Talladega Short Track, east of Boga, Alabama. 48th annual season opener. Classes include Carusa 602 LM Sportsman, Carusa Dirt Late Models, Talladega Sportsman, Carusa Modified, Factory Stock.
Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Final segment of this weekend show. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John, producing remotely. We appreciate all of his efforts. We thank you for listening and or watching, whether it's on the flagship station 95.1 The Mountain or on CRN Live on YouTube. Thank you very much. Joey Gase Motorsports in the Xfinity Series going far and wide in their search for talent, and they've landed a driver from Japan. Two race deals specifically. Takuma Koga. Koga, who he's set to drive the number 53 Toyota at Dover in July, and then Portland in late August. And if you follow the ARCA Menards series, you might be familiar with this guy's name. He's raced in that series on and off for about a decade. He's got a career best finish of 5th, which he's done 3 times, all of those times coming in Portland. You have Matt.
No faith in this car.
Yeah, you have talked about, though, jumping up from the ARCA Menards series. In this case, he's jumping over the Truck Series and into the Xfinity Series. regardless of what you think about Joey Gase Motorsports, what, if anything, can he bring to this car? With his experience at Portland, can he help them in some way, shape, or form?
He can't help the car if the car can't help him.
Okay, follow that. So, all right, experience at Portland's one thing. Dover?
He's ran an East Series race there before.
Okay. So it's experience at these tracks. That's why they chose to put him at these two particular locations. Okay. I can buy that. Then there's the CW network. Despite all the problems the CW network has been having with some cities' rather questionable coverage of the Xfinity Series, and yes, we're looking at you, Atlanta, the ratings continue to actually be quite good news for the Fifth Network. Following the race in Las Vegas, CW officials reported that the number of people watching the race sat at 1.08 million. That's a 5% increase over the number of viewers of the same event in 2024. And the numbers so far this year have been consistently higher than the similar race or similar race weekend of 2024, showing what we've said all along here on this show. The over-the-air still beats the cable satellite. Despite all the options and viewership, it still remains the truth. Because those races that we were talking about that compared to the races in 2024, those Xfinity Series races were, I think, all on Fox Sports 1. Cable. Mm-hmm. Put it on the over-the-air network. Boom. You suddenly get it. CW still is going through some growing pains. Yes, they technically have 100% coverage of the United States of America. But again, we talked about Atlanta. The CW affiliate actually didn't air the race last weekend in Las Vegas. In the city of Atlanta, they didn't get it on the CW network. They got it on their affiliated Peachtree Sports Network. And then there was another guy who I saw online on one of the racing groups that I follow, said that I'm over here in Nevada. He's over in the Reno, Carson City area of Nevada. Mm-hmm. And says they don't have a CW affiliate. Well, I looked it up. They technically do, but it's not on an over-the-air channel. The CW network in Reno, Carson City, you have to go to your digital channel of 8.3 to get to the CW. So it's going to, I'm not saying it won't take a little bit of work depending on where you might be, but people are finding it. And that's the important part for NASCAR and for the CW. They're going through growing pains like we talked about. Some people are complaining about it, and we have that complaint as well in the fact that the CW is doing this studio-only thing. Don't do this on a regular basis, CW.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bad call. It's going to be a real bad call if you do this on a regular basis. Turning our attention to the Craftsman Truck Series, a driver we haven't seen in NASCAR since 2018 coming back this weekend. Came back last night, actually. French-born driver Michael Disdier. And if I mess that up, I apologize, but you're French. You'll surrender anyway. He was in the Freedom Enterprises number 67 truck last night at Homestead Miami Speedway. You might not remember Disdier, but his story is interesting. Began in his home country of France as a motorcycle racer at the age of 16. But he then became a foreign exchange student, and he came to the United States, was placed with a family in North Carolina. So during his what would have been senior year of high school, he fell in love with stock car racing. So in 2007, he got a ride in a late model. He got a couple of rides, actually, in and around the Carolinas, but said he had to wait until 2014 to get a top-level NASCAR start. He got his start in the Truck Series that year. Said he was planning on a quicker return after his last race, which happened in 2018, but then, well, stupid COVID got in the way. Disdier said, and I'm not going to try the accent, quote, "Took us a little longer for everything to be ready so that we could finally be back and erase a period of scarcity imposed by the COVID period. All those efforts to get back included a crowdfunding campaign, netted him about $35,000.
Practice yesterday, he was 5 seconds slower than the lead truck. 5 seconds. But we've got somebody that cannot even be in a race since 2018 can get right back in it. But
yeah,
we're just we're eliminating people that
more
have
fuel to,
won at racetracks.
More fuel to the fire on the Mike Wallace argument.
This is
It's amazing.
pathetic.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. But I would also ask this. Again, 2018, so you're talking about 7 years-ish, little under, but still, you're talking effectively 7 years of not being in a NASCAR stock car vehicle of whatever series we're talking about. Doesn't really matter. Could be ARCA, could be trucks, Xfinity Cup, period. In the end, 6.5 years. So part of that, could it be part of that, number one, and number two, and no disrespect to the guys who are starting up this Freedom Racing Enterprises team, but let's face it, they haven't been exactly tearing things up this year anyway. So how much of that was the truck and how much of that was the driver?
50-50.
Okay. I mean, they have work to do. I'm rooting for Freedom Racing Enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see the small guy get up there and jump up and win. That's why the Wood Brothers win last weekend with Josh Berry was such a big thing, because we all love to see those single car teams jump up and grab a win, right? I would love to see Freedom Racing Enterprises, this small team, jump up and do well. But right now, these trucks are not that good. And then you throw a driver who has no experience in NASCAR for, again, 6+ years. That's a recipe for disaster. And
right.
Unfortunately, I don't know where he finished last night, but I'm thinking it probably wasn't all that great.
Disdier.
All right, I'll let you look that up while I do this. Also last night, you might have noticed this. Ryder Trucking and Logistics was on the hood of the number 33 of Frankie Muniz. This is their first sponsorship venture into motorsports, much less NASCAR. Team with Rayon Brothers and Frankie Muniz. The look of that truck last night, they said, honored the founding of the company way back in 1933 in the city of Miami when Jim Ryder launched the business with one single Ford Model A pickup truck. They say that last night's race at Homestead, Miami will be the first of several races this year that Ryder will be on the hood as a primary sponsor, but they didn't detail what other races those would be.
Good for them that they're getting funding to make the truck faster.
Yeah, this is Rayon Brothers. You got a little bit of cash here. Make sure you reinvest it into the truck.
Disdier, 31st.
Out of?
34.
Okay.
6 laps down.
Ouch.
Only one worse than him that was still running was Akinori Ogata that was 10 laps down.
Ouch. Who were the other two that wrecked out, I guess? Or
that would
problems?
be Ben Rhodes had a suspension failure, and Stephen Malozzi that was basically a starting park because it said vibration.
I gotcha.
When you retire with a vibration, you're a starting park.
Yeah, you're starting park. To the IndyCar series, where Bill Abel has announced that while his ambition is to get his team up into IndyCar on a more regular basis, this year is not going to be that year. He said he'd been debating getting a car into the Indy 500 under the Abel Motorsports moniker in order to help support his son, Jacob Abel. Jacob is a rookie this year, driving for Dale Coyne Racing. Abel Motorsports, they are a title-winning organization in Indy Next. They do have one Indy 500 start to the team's credit when they were working with driver R.C. Anderson back in 2023. Abel says he still has the chassis from that start, but added that it is in the process of being switched over from a Chevrolet chassis to a Honda chassis. So apparently there is a difference enough between those two engines to make you have to switch around the chassis a little bit. He said since it's not ready, he made the decision now. He's not going to wait. But he hasn't also, or either, I guess maybe the better way to put it, talk about his plans beyond 2025. We'll see him again out here at Barber. And, of course, you know, Indy Next runs most of the Indy car races as a support series. And we saw him last year, and they were good out at Barber. Mm-hmm. If Bill Abel actually decides at some point in time that he wants to get into IndyCar, I would not put it past him to get up there and start doing some stuff real quick, because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's going to mess around with back markers.
No, not at all.
So it'll be interesting to watch this. I buried this one because, well, number one, we didn't have a whole lot of IndyCar news, and number two, it does directly deal with IndyCar. I don't know whether you remember the IndyCar name Jim Clark, but the IndyCar legend of Jim Clark is making a comeback of a sort, and this will be because of the aforementioned Wood Brothers team. The NASCAR Cup Series team revealed their Darlington Raceway throwback paint scheme, and they're going to honor the 1965 number 82 Jim Clark Ford Lotus that ran that year's Indy 500, and as it turned out, won. So how is it that a legendary NASCAR team is taking a paint scheme that is honoring the 1965 Indy 500 winning car. 60 years ago, this year. Well, turns out the Wood brothers had a very direct hand in helping him win it. Leonard Delano and Ray Lee Wood were all members of the pit crew for Jim Clark in that race, and they brought their fledgling and soon-to-be everywhere choreographed pit crew sequencing that helped them get much faster pit stops, assisting Ford in finding a faster way to refuel the racer as well. All of that saved time on pit road, and Jim Clark won the race. So what they're going to do is they're going to modify it. Obviously, you're going to go from the old single-seater open-wheel car into a big stock car, Ford Mustang. But the car is going to be the majority racing green color, yellow stripe that starts wide over the nose of the Ford Mustang, covers most of the nose around the grille, and works into a yellow racing stripe as it reaches the cowl of the windshield, up over the roof, onto the trunk, and back down onto the back bumper. And, of course, the classic font of the 82 will be recreated with the 21, both of them inside a white circle. I can tell you right now, and I haven't seen any other throwback looks, but this right now is going to be a tough one to beat because they did a nice job in comparison to the Indycar.
I've seen a couple already, and this one is top 3.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the foot from the beach yet, but it's top 3 because Junior Motorsports released a very, very good one.
Oh,
this
you've
week.
seen one that I haven't. Okay. Now, is this going to be on the Cup Series level?
It's Xfinity car.
Xfinity, okay. Because
actually,
they still got that 60 car, or I'm sorry, 40 car that hanging out there. So I'm just kind of curious.
Technically, they've released 2 that are going to be, they're tough.
Okay. Yeah.
One is way tougher than the other one.
And because that weekend, we're going to do, you and I, what we have done the past few years. We're going to rank our top, we want to do what, top 3?
We do top 3 in each series.
So, yeah, we're going to do our top 3 in each series, and then we're going to do our top overall.
Yeah, and then we do best in show.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's just look at Connor Zilic. That's all I got to say.
I'm going to have to. I haven't seen it yet. To the NHRA, the straight line guys got a couple of things here. FVP batteries may not be a name that you're overly familiar with, but they have been named officially this week as the official battery of the NHRA. It's a multi-year deal, starts this season, goes on for a while. Longtime NHRA partner, been listed as the preferred battery of the series until this new partnership deal got struck. Now, depending on who you talk to within the company, FVP could stand for Factory Vehicle Parts or Factory Verified and Proven. Okay. They were launched in 2005, specifically engineered for max performance with batteries that work not only in automobiles, but RVs, for Marines, in other words, boating, commercial duties, lawn and garden, and a whole lot more. So congratulations to them coming on board. John Force Racing suffering another loss, marking the second in 2 weeks after Robert Hyde abruptly retired from his role as president of the organization, which we did announce on the show last week. Force announced that his longtime crew chief in the NHRA, Bernie Federley, passed away. And he was not only for Force, but for others in the NHRA, very highly respected guy. He was a mechanic from a young age, was actually working for a Canadian dairy company as their fleet mechanic before he got asked to help out a friend at a local drag strip. Found out that he enjoyed working there more than as a fleet mechanic, so he began turning wrenchers on racers. Started to gain a good reputation when in 1980 he was asked to tune Terry Capps' U.S. Nationals winner. In 1982, he jumped over to Larry Minor Racing, tuning for Gary Beck. Larry Dixon Sr. helped them turn the first Top Fuel runs that were at 5.4 and 5.3 seconds. That led to Beck getting the Top Fuel Division title in 1983. He then moved over to Ed McCullough's Funny Car Red in 1985. That pair claimed a dozen event wins together. He then joined forces with John Force in 1992, tuning Force's Funny Car. He, Force, along with Austin Coyle and John Medlin, were what John Force termed the brain trust of John Force Racing. That team resulted in 109 national event wins and 13 division championships from 1992 until Federley retired following the 2013 season. Federley was inducted into the Canadian Motorsports Drag Racing and International Drag Racing Halls of Fame. He passed away last weekend, we think due to natural causes. Bernie Federley, 83 years old. All right, we got to wrap things up here. But before we do, let's take a quick look here over at what the CRN League and Fantasy League is got going on here. We'll try and do this every week. That's
There
the plan.
are really no changes in the overall standings.
So Vegas didn't change things much, in other words?
Not really much, no. You're still leading. Junebug is in second. I'm not going to pronounce that third one because that's Boom Slick is all I'm going to say.
Okay. We'll just leave it at
It's
that.
third, Fire Chef fourth, I'm fifth, Chase is sixth, Staceman is seventh.
All right. Don't forget, picks open there. Make sure you get them in before tomorrow's race starts, because once that race goes green, it don't matter no more.
Nope.
All right. We'll keep you updated on it and let you know. You guys have a fantastic week. Don't forget about Cross Flags coming up this Wednesday. We'll get it posted up as soon as we can after we record it and get it ready to go. Thank you to producer John and for Molly for that. Both of them doing great work on that side of things. We thank you. Don't forget, subscribe right down below if you're on CRN Live on YouTube and you haven't yet. Y'all have a fantastic week. Looks like the weather's much better anyway. That's a big start.
No
We'll
doubt.
talk to you Wednesday and next Saturday right here on Cross Flags and on CRN. Thank you so much for all the support.
See ya.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.